All right, so you ready? Let's do this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alliance Group podcast. We have an amazing guest in the podcast studio today. Mr. Steve Smith, coming to us all the way from Florida, specifically what part of Florida?
Tampa.
Tampa, of course. He and his beautiful wife, Silvana, and business partner, Silvana, came to visit us. And we are here in the podcast studio. We're going to be shooting some other things for Alliance Group while they're here. Steve, thanks so much for being here. Welcome to Atlanta.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
We've been wanting to get you into the studio for a really long time, Steve. You have such a specific skill set. You are an amazing communicator, if you don't mind me saying so.
Thank you.
And you really approach your business with this experience and intelligence of how people think and how people feel, and you're just a true sales master who really kind of utilizes sales philosophy in what you do, and it's just something that I really admire. It's part of the reason that we are going to be filming a course with you while you're here, kind of on sales strategy with Steve Smith. So all this to say, we're just really excited to have you here, and thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
It's such an honor to be here, and I haven't been here for 5 years.
It's been 5 years. This is actually crazy.
5 years and 2 months ago, I came. I had just gotten married on Saturday in January,
Yep.
and we honeymooned our way to Atlanta because this was already on the calendar, and my wife was so gracious to, we need to do this.
For the new agent training camp.
Exactly.
This was what, January 2018?
Yeah, 2018. We
My
got married on
gosh.
Saturday and honeymooned our way here on Sunday, and had several days. And
Spent your honeymoon in a conference room with me and 20 other brand new insurance agents learning about living benefits life insurance.
I tell you what,
What a honeymoon.
This is not flattery, but that new agent training literally was revolutionary for me. I just contracted the November before.
Mm-hmm.
And came the first opportunity, and the rest is history of what has happened over the last 5 years.
And it's absolutely unbelievable what you've been doing the last 5 years. You literally, I think that after that first day of new agent training camp, you told me that you had written some policies in the hotel after day one. Between day one and day two, you were already writing policies, and you just blasted off from there, and it's been nothing but success since then. And it's been amazing to watch. You are definitely my shining best example of, hey, come to new agent training camp and you might just turn to a very top agent immediately like Steve Smith. Doesn't always happen that way, but it definitely did with you.
I tell all of our new agents, you got to get there, whatever it takes. And it's the first thing on the agenda, because it really was life-changing for me and for us, for our family. And
that's incredible,
thank you.
Steve.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I think it's just fantastic. It's awesome to hear that feedback. So let's kind of talk about what led you to that new agent training camp. You've had a very interesting life, and you've gathered experience in lots of different ways. First of all, you were a pastor and worked with nonprofits. Is that correct?
That's correct. I was a third-generation pastor, and I started speaking publicly, preaching, teaching when I was 15 years old.
Wow, yeah.
And went on to college and got my degrees, and experienced a measure of success in that, becoming a district superintendent and managing 175 other pastors.
That's incredible.
And for 32 years, that was my life. All of my education, all of my experience, that's all I knew how to do.
Right.
And then went through a time of brokenness, divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And at least from our tradition, divorced pastors were not in high demand.
I understand, yeah.
And so you're used to, at that level of education and experience, living with a good income, and go through loss.
Yeah.
And I found myself going from 6 figures plus and being respected and everything to sleeping on a floor in a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And driving for Uber and Lyft to try to figure out what are my next steps.
What is the next step? Yeah.
And my resumes were out, but all my education and all my experience was in the ministry nonprofit field.
Mm-hmm.
And out of the clear blue, I get a call from somebody found my resume on monster.com, I guess,
Yeah.
and said, I think you'd make a great insurance agent. And so very briefly, I started with another organization and found my way. And actually, Frank Thomasine
Yep.
called me.
We love Frank.
He called me one day. I owe the man my life. He called me. He actually texted me, and he asked me, is this still Pastor Steve's cell phone number? I had moved to another state from where we met.
Right.
And I said yes, and he shared many kind things with me about his experience and our relationship.
So he was part of your congregation at
He was
some
actually,
point?
yes.
Wow.
I had the privilege of being Frank and Karen's pastor.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so he asked if he could call me. And I said, well, sure, Frank. And he said, he still referred to me as Pastor Steve then. He said,
Sure.
Pastor Steve, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm trying to sell life insurance, but I'm about to starve to death. And he said, why didn't you call me? And I said, Frank, life was so crazy, I didn't even think about it. I'm
Right.
so sorry. And he said, and he was very kind in his words about my gifts and things like that. And he said, I know you,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll do anything I can to help you. And Frank, I owe everything to him. My life changed the day. It was election day 2017 that he texted and called me.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately contracted with him and the Alliance Group.
Yep.
And that was November. I came here in January.
And
And
then
the rest is history.
the rest is amazing. You know, I love these stories. It seems we've had lots of guests on our podcast, and in my position at Alliance Group, I've had the opportunity to get to know a lot of agents' backstories. Common thread that I see is this kind of, you know, life was this, and then this huge challenge hit, and then they get the comeback story, right? Which is exactly what I'm hearing from you. It's life was this, then there was this huge challenge, and I had to overcome it. And it's like the phoenix rising from the ashes, right? It's like,
You know, Samuel, and again, I don't know who this is for, or who this will mean something to, but the power of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
There are many times that I'll be driving down the road and I'll call Frank and I'll just say, I want, and sometimes with tears, I want to thank you and Karen for the opportunity you gave me, because they believed in me
Right.
when I didn't believe in myself.
Yep.
Because of things that had happened, my self-esteem was low. I was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget Frank. He shared with me, he said, just promise me, Steve. And he mentioned some ridiculous amount of money that he says, when you make this in a month, just promise me as a former pastor, you won't feel guilty. And I thought, this man is crazy. He's crazy. I just like to make that much month, that what he said in a month, in a year, please.
Right. Uh-huh.
And I'll never forget when it happened.
Wow.
I called him and again, and it's a regular phone call, because the things that I now enjoy, there's hard work.
Yeah.
There's the work ethic. There's the skill set, all those things. But don't ever discount a relationship and the power of relationship. I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. So talking about that skill set, you know, watching you over the past 5 years, it's been incredible. I mean, it was meteoric, your rise, and you've been able to maintain it. What specifically of the characteristics from your former life as a pastor that are you bringing to the life insurance industry? How has that experience helped you attain and maintain this success in the life insurance industry in your mind?
It's a great question. To me, I always refer to the two rails that my train runs on.
Mm-hmm.
One being integrity, the other being compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Compassion because, in addition to color the story even more, 35 years ago, as a 25-year-old, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer,
Right.
Hodgkin's disease. And the lymph fluid was filling into the pericardium around my heart, and I was literally drowning in my own fluid. And it was 4B because
Stage 4B.
because it was around my heart.
That's not a good stage.
Yeah,
That's
and
a late stage.
my treatment at Duke University, and God miraculously brought me out of that. And I've had 35 years with every report clear. And Saturday I walked 8.5 miles. So most days are 3 to 5 miles, and so.
So you have seen, you have felt. You're talking about compassion. You've felt the fear that happens when you get a diagnosis like that.
Well, Samuel, when I walk in those days, when I, as a pastor, still trying to pastor while I'm going through treatment, I would walk in to try to care for others, and literally just anxiety and fear of needles, just because of what I'm going through. And that was 35 years ago when they didn't have the nausea drugs and things like that.
Right.
But when you've had cancer, you don't have to say anything to a cancer patient, just, oh.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, oh, it speaks a library.
Mm-hmm.
And I use it every day on why I so firmly believe in living benefits, because I was uninsurable for a long period of time.
Right. You obviously didn't have living benefits when you were 20.
I didn't have any.
They weren't around back then.
I didn't have life insurance
Right.
at that point. I
Right.
was 25. Who needs life insurance when you're 25?
Exactly.
Actually, everyone.
Yes,
needs it,
we know that everyone does now.
So that's the compassion part. I identify, and sometimes Frank Thomasine and John Nelson, they'll say, Steve, you care so much. I'll fight for every case.
Yeah.
Because I've been uninsurable,
Mm-hmm.
and I fight for every case for those that need
The people that
coverage.
need it most, right?
Yeah,
The
sometimes
people who
the
can barely qualify are the people who really need that preferred instead of a standard.
I'm the
because
underwriter's worst enemy. I'm like, I'm fighting for these cases because it's from my heart.
Yeah.
That drives the compassion part, and people feel that.
Yeah.
The second part, my training was a pastor, and integrity, honesty, telling the truth. And so I don't run away from that. Many times when I'm making an initial call, or I just say, I hope I don't offend you, but I think you deserve to know who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
And why do I do that? Because people they follow those they know, like, and trust.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to develop, I want them to know me.
Right.
So they will like me, so they will trust me, so I can help them.
Yep.
And so many times I'll say, I hope this doesn't offend you. I was in the nonprofit sector for over 30 years. Actually, I was a pastor. Mm-hmm. Well, it has never hurt me.
Right.
And typically it causes the defenses to go down. And I say something like this: I can't change the numbers for you, but what I can do is I promise I'll be honest with you. Mm-hmm. And I'll do my best to find the best rating, the best company, the best situation for you. And so that is part of the skill set of blending integrity with compassion to create immediate knowability,
right,
if that's the word.
Right.
Likability. I like this guy. If I'm going to buy insurance, it's going to be from him.
It's differentiating yourself.
It really is.
Right. I mean, and really kind of Again, I love that line. I don't want to offend you, but I think you deserve to know who you're talking to. I think that immediately their ears are open. Okay, so who am I talking to? Because they're assuming
Right.
it's a life insurance agent, sitting behind a desk, with a Rolodex calling people trying to sell, policies. But you do have a very unique story, and I think many of our agents that are watching this, they have a unique story, right?
I think it was you that said, or at least I've given you credit for it, so you deserve it.
Sure, I'll absolutely take it.
Stories sell.
Yep.
As I talk to other agents, I'm amazed to find that many of our agents do not use on a regular basis the videos.
Mm-hmm.
There's never a time I don't use the videos.
That's excellent.
I mean, most every time I'll open an appointment, say I'd like to take 2 or 3 minutes. A picture's worth 1,000 words. I want to show you a brief video to see if this makes sense, if this is where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And almost always, I'm picking a video that will reflect culture,
Yep.
gender,
Yep.
Life circumstance.
Where they can see themselves.
Exactly.
Occupation.
In other words, these are my tools,
Mm-hmm.
and I find the right tool, and the story sells before we're ever started.
Right. And then you just guide them.
It's really, I'm not that good. It's just the stories.
Oh,
Tell the truth.
You're absolutely too kind. Well, you also have your own stories to tell. Not only did you have that miraculous cancer survival story from way back in your 20s, there was something much more recent that happened to you as far as living benefits go. Tell me about that. I literally learned about that this morning, not an hour ago.
Well, last June, I just celebrated my 60th birthday, and I had an opportunity to have lunch with a friend in town. Had been a lifelong friend. In fact, when we met, I was 6 and he was 4, and he's still my friend.
Wow.
And
Truly a lifelong.
So we were having lunch and in town, and he's so busy, it's very, very difficult to get a lunch with him, even though we have a very, very close friendship. And we're sitting at lunch, and I'm struggling physically at the moment. I'm never sick.
Mm-hmm.
But that day, I remember reaching for the glass of water with my right hand, and the glass of water was too heavy for some reason.
You were feeling faint.
And weak and dizzy, and kind of disoriented.
Uh-huh.
This is out of the clear blue. And I turned to my friend Scott and I said, Scott, I'm not well. We found our way through the meal, but when it got time to leave, I said, I'm not able to drive. And I explained what was going on. I said, could you take me to an urgent care? And he did, thankfully. And when I got there, they did tests, and the doctor initially said, you're having a heart attack.
Oh my gosh.
And to make a long story short, again, this is my lifelong friend, and with tears in my eyes as I'm getting ready to get into the ambulance to head to the hospital, I turned to him and I said, Scott, promise me that you'll take care of my wife if something happens. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I didn't ask Scott to do the impossible, because I had made provision and I had a plan in place. Had something happen, the homes would have been paid off, and my wife would have had years of income had I died.
Yep.
Because of the policies.
Yep.
And had I been disabled for a period with a chronic illness, or in this case, a critical illness, my wife, our income would not have stopped.
The living benefits.
Because of the living benefits. And so those kind of things in life, I just are real.
Mm-hmm.
They happen to us. And they relate with people. If I'm going to be able to help someone get insurance or help them with financial matters, they've got to know me, and my story needs to connect.
I think that's where you draw from the compassion and the integrity. You have real life experiences that, one, your cancer diagnosis, you did not have living benefits, and so you had that experience of if that happens to anyone else at that age, they need to make sure they have it, because I didn't, and I'm lucky to be here today. And then you had that second experience where you did have a plan in place. So both of those things together, I think, is what helps you. It gives you the belief in what you do,
Right.
that that it's not just that everyone needs living benefits. It's urgent. They need them now, and everyone needs them.
And Samuel, I think that takes it from just a job or a career or about making money to a calling. If I have to believe this so strongly that they feel it on the other side of the Zoom call or the other side of the table or the other side of the phone call. In other words, yesterday I was doing a review with one of our clients, and I do an annual review, and that's a powerful opportunity to reconnect and many times resell the policy, walk through, this is what you have and this is why it's so important, and even talk then about converting term to other options. But as I was talking to her, I said, one of the things that I do this for is to see life happens, divorce happens, children go to college, and beneficiaries pass away, and relationships change. And so are there any things of life change that have happened, Tina, since we've talked last? And she said, by the way, I got married. And I said, awesome.
That's a big life change.
Congratulations. I need to change my beneficiary. I need to change my name. And I said, absolutely, we'll help you with all of those things. Let me ask you this. Tell me about your husband. And I began, what does he do for a living? And all these kind of things. And I said, what kind of coverage do you have in place for him? Well, he doesn't have any coverage. And I said, well, we got to fix that. I think it might be less expensive than you think. And so right then and there, she said, well, tell me. And in this review, it turned into writing a policy as I got acquainted with her husband and was able to hear his story and help him.
Yeah.
So
it's something that's so important. I think agents, so we're always, kind of encouraging them, like the annual review. I mean, it shouldn't be optional. It shouldn't be, maybe I'll do that. If I'm running low on appointments, I'll go do some annual reviews. It has to be part of your process with any client that you have, right?
To me, again, Samuel, it's a matter of integrity.
Right.
It's about caring deeply about people. And many times, in this industry, if we don't sell, we don't eat. You have to sell.
Right.
You have to get the next client. However, the integrity part is I'm going to care for my clients. And I take, for example, I inherited an orphan client that became mine. And as I began to do a review of her policy, I began to hear her story. And since she had one of our policies, she had living benefits, she had like a preferred rating, she had a chronic illness that developed and forgot what she had.
Wow. And
the agent never contacted her. She had no contact. She missed the ability because of the time limit. She lost a year of work and she lost income, all because an agent did not do a review.
Yeah, it's not just about getting the policy in place. It's about applying the policy, and it's about keeping the policy up to date and making sure that it works when it's supposed to.
To me, it's not about sales. It's about developing a book of business, of relationships, of this is the guy you call.
Yeah.
Because he cares, and he'll always tell you the truth.
And that's what makes people refer business to you, exactly. Right? I mean, if it's something that, Jerry used to say it all the time. He used to say it, Jerry Stratton, our dearly departed Jerry Stratton. He used to always say, if you're chasing commissions in this business, you won't be in this business long.
That's right.
You have to care about people, and you have to do the right thing for people. And if you focus instead of on selling a policy or making a commission, and instead you focus on serving a family and doing a job and doing that job as well as you possibly can, everything else is going to take care of itself.
And again, I think that's where my background as a pastor has prepared me.
Right. It's service.
I'll never forget. It was a Sunday morning early. I got a phone call from one of our clients the grandparents had written an IUL on a 17-year-old granddaughter. And early that Sunday morning, I was still in bed. I got a phone call from the family. Their granddaughter had been killed the night before in a tragic car accident. So what do? I have the best wife in the world. I said, we'll be there. And we stopped and we got lunch for 50 people, loaded up the car, the ice, the drinks, the chicken, everything. And just as I would when I was a pastor, I was there and we delivered and we served lunch to the extended family. There was no money made that day.
Right.
There was hugging and wiping away tears and assuring them, we're going to help you file the claim. We're going to be there.
Right.
What was I doing? I was just being a neighbor, not a pastor. My heart was broken. And I think if in this business you can just be real, it takes me back to the story of the Velveteen Rabbit.
Yeah, I was reading that to Crosby not too long ago.
And I think that ought to be required reading for all of our agents. Just love people till the hair's rubbed off of you.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. You mentioned your amazing wife, Silvana, who's actually here in the office. You guys have such an amazing relationship, and not only a relationship together, obviously, but as business partners. She helps you with your business, and she's she is what you will say this. So you've said it many times before. You could not do this without her. For agents that are watching, how important do you think it is to have that? Maybe not a wife, but having that someone that is assisting you in your business, so that you, as the quote unquote salesperson, can be doing what you're good at and focusing on that rather than administrative tasks or setting appointments or doing paperwork or things like that.
Well, I hope, again, I believe in giving honor where honor is due.
Of course.
And hopefully Frank and Karen will hear this. But Frank and Karen Tomasi they are the gold standard of this. And they've modeled it so well. And the times they've mentored us. And Frank has let me know repeatedly he could not do what he does without Karen, and anybody that knows the story and how good she is knows it's the truth. But they've helped us, and they've modeled that, and they've been so good to take us together and just say this is how it's done as a team. And I could not accomplish half what I do without the support administratively, relationally, and then my wife's bilingual. And the breadth of our business has grown tremendously into the Hispanic community because of that. Just going to a whole new level.
Wow.
And so, I mean, many, many times she'll translate for them, and she's actually working on getting her own license now, and she's become a citizen. But beyond,
congratulations, by the way. That's actually fairly recent, about a month ago.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. But beyond the translation, beyond the things, even if you speak the same language, I remember a couple of years ago, before COVID changed the world, I drove 58,000 miles that year, and many nights I would not get in till 8:30, 9:30 at night, and supper was on the table. And never one complaint. Never one complaint about how early or how late, but just that we're in this together.
Support.
We're building a life together. We're serving people. The day that we took food to the family, I mean, there was no question about changing our plans for a beach day. We were headed to love people, and she was hugging them and serving meals. We're a team.
Yeah, we can tell.
And together we can accomplish so much more. Yesterday on the ride here, as it is any day, we're on the road.
Yep.
I mean, the leads come in.
You guys were selling policies on the road on the way to Atlanta.
We absolutely were. And, again, I pull into a Cracker Barrel parking lot. She goes inside and enjoys herself. And an hour and a half later, she walks out, and not one word of complaint. That gives energy.
Yeah.
That the willingness to be adaptable.
Yeah.
It gives you strength. It gives you energy, and
It's amazing.
we're building a business together.
Absolutely. We always say at Alliance Group, together we're better. You guys
Absolutely.
are the perfect personification of that. Steve, we have a lot that we are going to cover, a lot that we're going to shoot with your visit to Stratton Studios. We're really excited over the next couple of days. Thank you so much for being a guest of the podcast, and we're so excited to have you here.
Well, it's an honor. It really is. And just as I've called Frank and Karen and thanked them, I want to thank you. I'm sure you hear it a lot, but 5 years ago, January, those days with you, the training was transformative for our business and my life. And thank you again.
No, it was my pleasure, and thank you for everything that you're doing for your clients. Thank you for everything that you've done for Alliance Group, and let's keep doing that.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Listen to this interview and more on the Alliance Group podcast.